Hey everyone, welcome to another movie through Division. Today, we're diving into Charlie Chaplin's The Kid. Without wasting any time, let's get started. What makes someone a father? Is it blood? Money? Or is it simply the choice to take responsibility for another human being? Most people remember The Kid as Charlie Chaplin's most emotional film. Others remember it as a story about poverty. But the more I revisit it, the more I feel that both interpretations miss what the film is really about. Because underneath all the comedy, The Kid is, above all else, a film about responsibility. It's about the people who run away from it. And the people who choose to carry it, even when they don't have to. The film opens with one of its most heartbreaking scenes. A mother abandons her baby. Every time I watch it, I find it difficult to defend her decision. Poverty may explain why she did it. But it doesn't justify it. Still, every time I come back to this film, one question stays with me even more than that scene itself. Where is the father? The man who helped bring this child into the world isn't just absent from the child's life. He's almost absent from the story itself. It's as if Chaplin isn't only showing us a missing father. He's pointing to something society has quietly accepted. Whenever a child is involved, our attention immediately turns to the mother. She's the one who's judged. She's the one expected to take responsibility. Meanwhile, the man who should be sharing that responsibility often disappears from the conversation entirely. And that's exactly when Chaplin introduces his main character. Not a hero. Not a successful man. Just a tramp. Based on first impressions alone, most of us probably wouldn't trust him to raise a child. He doesn't have a proper home. He has no money. No stable job. Nothing about him looks like the picture of a good father. And that's where Chaplin quietly challenges our first judgment. Because just like the people inside the film, our instinct is to judge him by what we see, not by who he is. Click on the video on your screen to watch my analysis of Way Down East. I'll see you there. Instead, he lets us discover that for ourselves. He simply shows us their life together. Sharing breakfast. Getting into trouble. Working side by side. Arguing over little things. Only to laugh together again a moment later. If you remove these scenes, the story would still make sense. The plot would still move forward. But we wouldn't feel anything for these two characters. I think that's one of the smartest decisions Chaplin makes. He builds the relationship first. And only then does he put it to the test. There's something else about The Kid that people rarely talk about. Think about what this film is actually showing us. An abandoned child. Poverty. Loneliness. People struggling just to survive. And yet, somehow, it's still a comedy. Even in the middle of all that pain, Chaplin never stops making us laugh. I don't think that's accidental. If the film were nothing but tragedy from beginning to end, we'd probably become emotionally exhausted. Eventually, we'd stop feeling anything at all. So Chaplin takes a different approach. He makes us laugh with these characters first. He lets us spend time with them, live with them. Slowly, almost without realizing it, we begin to care about them. Which is exactly why the film's most painful moment hits as hard as it does. When the authorities come to take the boy away, it doesn't feel like we're simply watching a child being separated from a man. It feels like we're watching a family being torn apart. And that's the moment the film finally asks its central question. Is fatherhood defined by blood? Or by the responsibility you're willing to accept? Up to this point, the film still hasn't tried to define what it means to be a father. Chaplin never gives us a speech. He never tells us what to think. He simply shows us two people living as a family. Now he puts that relationship to the test. When the authorities arrive to take the child away, their decision isn't completely unreasonable. At least not on the surface. A poor man. A tiny home. An uncertain future. From the law's perspective, moving the child somewhere safer seems like the right thing to do. But this is where the film asks us another question. Can responsibility really be measured by someone's circumstances? If the answer is yes, then the tramp should have handed the boy over the very first day he found him. But he didn't. Because the moment he chose to keep that child, he also chose to become responsible for him. And that's the distinction Chaplin keeps drawing throughout the film. There's a difference between having a child and choosing to care for one. One of the most heartbreaking moments in the film isn't the instant the boy is lifted into the truck. The real heartbreak is watching the tramp's reaction. He runs. He climbs onto rooftops. He risks everything just to catch up. Not because he's trying to prove that he's the child's legal guardian, but because he's terrified of losing the person he spent years loving, protecting, and raising. Without a single line of dialogue, the film quietly gives us its answer. Fatherhood is more than a biological connection. It's a choice. And it's a choice that has to be made again, every single day. After everything that happens, the film returns us to the mother. But she's not the same woman we saw at the beginning anymore. Her life has changed. She has stability now. Security. And eventually, she's reunited with her child. On paper, it looks like a happy ending. But Chaplin never treats it that simply. Because some things, once lost, can't really be restored. Even if people find each other again, time doesn't come back with them. And that's the price every decision in this story eventually carries. At the beginning of this video, I said The Kid is a film about responsibility. And by this point, it becomes hard to see it any other way. Every character is defined by how they respond to it. The mother, who walked away from it, and spent years living with the consequences. The father, who is almost completely absent from the story. As if Chaplin is suggesting that society has grown so used to missing fathers that their absence barely registers anymore. And then there's the tramp. A man no one expected anything from. Yet he becomes the one who accepts what others refuse to carry. The more I think about this film, the less I see it as a story about poverty. Poverty is the background. It shapes everything, yes. But it isn't the core question. The real question is much simpler. When life places responsibility in front of you, what do you do with it? Do you walk away, or do you carry it anyway? Maybe that's why Chaplin's Tramp has stayed with us for more than a century. Not because he's a hero. And not because he's perfect. He makes mistakes. He cheats when he needs to survive. He bends moral rules when life forces him to. But there's one thing that sets him apart from many of the more respectable characters in the film. Once he accepts responsibility for someone, he doesn't let go of it. And maybe that's why The Kid still works today, even after all these years. Because it's no longer just a silent comedy. It's a simple question that never really goes away. What makes someone a father? Or a mother? Is it blood? Is it money? Is it status? Or is it the responsibility they're willing to carry for another human being? Chaplin never gives us the biological father. Instead, he shows us something else entirely. A man who chooses to become one. With no obligation. No expectation. No connection except the one he decides to build. As if he's reminding us that being human is defined less by what we're given, and more by what we choose to do with it. And maybe that's why I keep coming back to one idea. Poverty isn't just one of the hardest things in the world because it takes away comfort. It's because it can force people into impossible decisions. The mother makes one of them. The father avoids his. But in the middle of all that darkness, Chaplin still leaves us with something else. A small, quiet possibility. That even in the worst circumstances, a person can still choose to care for someone else. When the film ended, that wasn't what stayed with me. Not the poverty. Not the wealth. Not even the ending itself. What stayed with me was a much simpler question. If life ever placed a responsibility in front of me, one I was never forced to accept, What would I do? Would I walk away? Or would I carry it? I don't think there's an easy answer. But maybe that's exactly the point. Because more than 100 years later, the question is still waiting for us. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll love this one too. Click on the video on your screen to watch my analysis of Way Down East. I'll see you there.
If this way of looking at cinema speaks to you, feel free to subscribe. Upcoming videos will explore films that aren't just meant to be watched, but thought about. Thanks for watching.